Welcome back to the channel. Today we're working on the twin turbo 99 Dakota RT, and today we're going to work on installing an oil catch can. Alright, start things off. The main reason I want to put an oil catch can on that we're going to vent to atmosphere is because of the small oil leak I have. The only place this thing leaks oil is out of that breather, down the valve cover, and it covers the side of the engine block and the transmission, and then as you're going down the road it kind of sprays it from there. It doesn't leak a lot. It's probably just enough under boost. It slowly fills the rail up and just slowly drips. It's not really a big leak, it's just annoying. And last time I worked on it, I hooked up the PCV system, which is good for crankcase stuff. It's good to do that. But considering I'm 10.5 to 1 compression ratio and we're running boost on pump gas, I really don't like risking having the oil in the intake or having any amount of oil vapor or anything in the intake tract. It's just not a good idea. So we're going to get rid of the PCV crap and go to this vented system. I guess maybe to explain that a little better, the PCV system and having a PCV valve go into the intake manifold is good because it helps get rid of fuel vapors and other things that your oil, as it's heating up, can get rid of. Those are good things. When you go to an atmospheric vented system, you're not constantly drawing air through there. So it's not going to clean itself as well from those types of issues. But it's okay. It's worth it for me because we're going to be pushing enough power on pump gas and it's already marginally a problem. I haven't had any detonation yet, but we're still keeping the boost low. I do plan on cranking it up. The problem with oil vapors is your octane of your fuel, let's say it's 93 or E85, the oil is not going to have the same octane, and also you don't know when you're going to get a spray of oil and when not, so you can't consistently, you don't know when that's going to happen. It could pull in a little bit of oil, it could happen to light that off easier than it does the fuel because of where it's at, and bam, detonation, engine blown. So that's the main reason to have an oil catch can. Even if you're using PCV, that's why you want a catch can, so you're not sucking into oil vapors. So anyway, back to it. So it's not going to be real complicated. I do have to take the valve covers off because of the way I want to do it. This here is the same valve cover as that. This is where your filler cap goes, and this is where the grommet would go for the push-in style breather. So I've got these that are steel ordered from McMaster-Carr that fit pretty close to that. So I'm going to take the pan off of this and weld that in. And on this side, the PCV hole has the same exact size. So I'll pull this valve cover off, pop one of these in. And then all this is, the rest of the stuff is Amazon stuff. So I got these fittings for that. I think I will thread it a little deeper so I can keep the fittings from sticking way out of the valve cover. That's just a preference thing. You could tighten it up and call it a day. I've got all these fittings with more Amazon hoses. This is Evil Energy fittings, Evil Energy hose. I don't know who made this. I haven't had any problems with these. This fuel crossover hose is Evil Energy. I haven't had any problems with it. I haven't had any leaks. It's been fine. So I'm definitely not worried about it for this. So anyway, we're going to have hose in the back go over. The catch can is going to go over here. About like that. I've checked hood clearance and I can get away with it right there. So it's going to go that way. These fittings are going to kind of face towards the back. A little bit of an angle. So they'll be heading back this way. So valve cover, over, in. Valve cover, over, in. Nice and simple, not complicated. So the hardest part of the whole thing is pulling the valve covers off and welding these in. But I think it's going to be nice and simple. And I think it's going to look pretty good. So let's get to it. We'll see how far we make it. I think it's going to rain, but I'm going to get these valve covers off. And bare minimum, if I can get the fittings welded in, and put the fittings back on it in some 90 so no water gets in, I'll just put my canopy back over it. Well, let's get these valve covers off. For your magnum, it's going to be a bunch of 7/16 bolts. Everything else will kind of fold out of the way. It's not too hard. covers are degreased. I got the part where I'm going to weld cleaned off, so I also put these in the belt sander and knocked off where it said 3/4, so this looks a little slicker. But I'm going to get the welder set up and get to welding. All welded up. Probably take these to work with me and see if they can tap. Which one's hotter? That one's cooler. Let's see how far the fitting actually goes in and stops now. See, the threads are a little hard to start, and it bites awfully early. It might not be that bad. We're getting snug right there, and you can see how far the fitting sticks out. I'd like it to get a lot tighter, keep it more low profile. So that's why we're going to run the tap further down in this thing. Just for aesthetics, not for function. For function, we're done. Here they are. I sunk them a little bit so they weren't sticking out so far. I painted them with some bed liner, but I didn't warm anything up, and it was kind of cold out, so they kind of milked over, but I'm really not worried about it. They're sealed up, so I'm not going to record putting them back on. It's real dark. It's going to look a lot like how I took them off, only the opposite way. But I'm nervous about my engine sitting open because it should be raining soon, so I'm just going to pop them on. Valve covers are back on. I kind of wish I went with some 90-degree fittings and then put the straights on the bottom instead of using these 90s. It gets really close to here, but it's probably going to touch, but it'll be alright. My plan is to go to a 4-barrel with probably a 2-inch spacer under it. By the time I do that, it's going to pick this up just a little bit, and then it will clear. Right now it's just going to scrub, but that's okay. So I ended up turning this valve cover around. The PCV hole was over here, but that was going to be really tight since I made this bracket to hold the canister. And because I'm going into that port right there, they were almost touching, so that wasn't going to work so well. So now that I've put this up here, I've got a little more room to make a loop to come in to the catch can. And of course this one over here, it's just going to sneak right around the top, I think. I might kick it around that way. Nah. If I kick it around and tuck it real close under the cowl, I could hide it pretty good. So we'll do that. We'll kick it back. That keeps it out of the way of having to mess with the distributor whenever we have to adjust anything. And this one I'm going to come back and have it curl around. I thought about putting a 45 here, but I'd rather keep it further back away from the downpipes. And right now it looks like this is going to be really tight on the hood. I've closed it and it sits in this pocket, so I think we're going to be just fine. If anything, it'll touch it and I'll trim it just a little bit, but we should be okay. I've got a little more room. I could drop it, but I'd rather have the canister up a bit. One, easier to get to that drain. Two, I'd rather the lines have to go uphill from the valve covers so that if fluid's slowly making its way through the hose, or vapors and stuff collecting on the side of the hose on the way there and it's uphill, let's say we're on a pull, it's slowly pushing it up the line, and then you let off and you're cruising, gravity will send it right back to the valve cover. I think that's a good thought process on how it should work. So that's why it's as high as I can get it. But the filter base is pretty tall, so I could trim it, knock it down a bit. But I'm gonna mock up the hose and get these cut, and I'll show you how to slap these fittings on. They are not complicated. So I'll get it mocked up, I'll get this end started on each of them and just have them sitting here, and then I'll show you how to actually assemble this when we attach the 90s to the hose. I'll just show you on this one. I just use a Ziz wheel to cut this off. This is the nylon stuff. If you have I don't know if I have a chunk of the stainless stuff still here, but if you have the stainless around this, electrical tape around it first and then cut it off helps keep it from fraying as bad. And then you take the tape off and slide the fitting on. Now, once your fitting is on, see, once you get it to this point, kind of neaten this up. This is threaded in reverse. So if you can get it started and get everything in the fitting and then start turning it left hand, it'll pull most of those frays in and start threading itself onto the nylon. Then you can look in here, see if I can get better light. You see the edge of the hose there? You want to go until that hose is pretty much flush with the ledge of the threads. Saw a review on Amazon where the guy was showing his fittings being loose after so many weeks or whatever, which is impossible if he put it together right. The hose end was loose. He could wiggle this in and out. That's impossible. So you get it, so the hose is right there at the edge. I hope you can see that. And then we'll go find some oil to help lube this up. We're just going to take some old oil. Let's see, I'll use my pinky. We'll just get a little bit on my pinky there. And we'll finger blast the hose. Get a little bit on this guy too. And as you're sliding this in, usually I still have this in my hand, my vise is not mounted. As you're sliding this in, watch your nylon. Make sure it's not slowly threading in and just pushing it back as if you have it misaligned. As long as you got all that right, once you get it there, it'd be ideal if you actually bolt your vise down, but I'll get to that someday. They make nice wrenches for this so you don't scratch your fittings. I'm not that worried about it. It'd be nice to have the fittings actually. So as we tighten it up, we're just going to watch our nylon and make sure it's not pushing it out. I really need to have two hands on this. Alright. So one hand on this, one hand tightening it up. Make sure it doesn't slide back. And as it starts to spread the hose out, it makes it bite into those left-hand threads. So as it turns right, if it tries to turn with the fitting, it's also trying to tighten itself back into the base fitting. Then you'll run the fitting all the way down until it makes good contact with the base fitting. And we're tight. And that's it. We're on there. So I'll do this 3 more times and we'll be done. One thing to note, some gentle jaws and the right wrenches will help. But I don't think they would help on this. These are cheap Amazon pieces. I don't even think they're anodized. They're not like a hard anodizing. It's very easy to scratch, it's very soft, but you get what you pay for. And for what it's doing, I don't really care. So, 3 more times. Hoses are hooked up, everything's tight. Well, I'm still gonna tighten this. I'm gonna set the hood on it, see where it hits, see if I can see any marks. I want to make a comment here. I've had just a couple of people talk about how this reservoir is not big enough. I don't know if you can see the fluid level, it's just over the return fitting, which is there. And this is full cold, and I've driven it several times. So this plenty of capacity for this. Now, if you had overheating issues or any other coolant issues or a head gasket issue, probably wouldn't get away with this, but I've not had any cooling problems with my truck, so it's doing just fine. Well, I think there's nothing left for us to do but go for a ride and see if that thing starts filling up. And we'll close the hood on it, see if it mushes it. I don't even think it left a mark, so we will tighten that up and call it good. See how she starts after sitting for 2 weeks, well, a week and a half. Figure out which pulley's squeaking. Back from the trip to the store, I've got, sorry it's getting dark, no leaks, and when I open this up, there was nothing in it. See if you can see it dripping on the fender. No, there's nothing in it. So far so good. When I get the transmission fixed and can actually beat on it, that may change. But for right now, it works. And still no sign of it actually hitting the hood, even though it's pretty tall. Well, that's going to be it for this one. We're just knocking things out just little by little when I can on the truck until I fix the transmission. There is a 46 RE right there to rebuild. Oh, let's put some light on it. Bingo. And there's one of two 8.8s I have. This one's a 410 open. I'm going to put a true track in it. But first thing we're going to do is get it in the truck. I want to do a video on what it takes to just put one in, get it all set up, and then I'll take it back out, probably shorten it, put the true track in it. But if you made it this long, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.